Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Health, Wealth, and Wisdom Summit, the Parents Edition. I'm your host, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer, and today with me, I have a speaker, an expert in her own field. Her name is Ellie Banbury. She's an author, speaker, workshop facilitator, and mentor on self-discovery and development, focusing on young people who are searching for their voice and the tools to navigate their future in this follow me world. So Ellie, I want to get your whole story. So I can read the bio, but what I want to do is I want to make sure that you go ahead and tell us all about yourself and how you actually got to do what you do and your personal story of how you ended up where you are today. So please take it away, and thank you, audience, for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for introducing me. So yeah, my name's Ellie. I'm 25 years old and I live in Auckland in New Zealand. I emigrated here with my family when I was 12 years old, so a wee while ago now. And from that experience alone, that really opened my eyes to just how much the world has to offer for young people. So at that young age of 12, I really had a lot of exposure to just how much we could grow from traveling.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I want the audience to actually appreciate what time it is in Auckland, New Zealand. So they see your level of commitment to parents and making sure that you can support them.
Definitely. It's currently 4 o'clock in the morning. It's been a while since I've woken up at that time. I think the only other time I've woken up at 4 a.m. is for a flight. So you know, it's pretty exciting.
Thank you for doing that for us and for our audience. And our audience, if you would like to share our information with the rest of the friends and family and the support, I'm going to have Mercy, our assistant, go ahead and put in the chat box our link for registration so we can help as many parents, empower them, support them. This is for you guys. We want to make sure that you guys can go ahead and spread the message and also help us empower the future generation, create a better world as much as possible. Sorry for interruption, but go right ahead.
No worries. That's totally cool. No worries. Yeah, no, so after traveling here, I always had that spark in me that I wanted to, continue looking out globally to things I could connect with. But also, as I became a teenager here, I had a lot of exposure to leadership opportunities. I was always at a youth group being a leader for holiday programs and various other things. And then when I graduated high school, which is college in New Zealand, but I think in the States it will probably be high school still, at the age of 18, I did a gap year, which I'm guessing that's the same term used across the world. It's just traveling overseas. Yeah. And I was supposed to be going with a friend originally, but she changed her mind. So that kind of left me wondering, how am I supposed to navigate this time? And of course, I wanted to go to university. There was that pressure there to kind of get a degree as well from just society. So I deferred my university place and then had to figure out this gap year. And this is where the kind of story starts, I guess. So my mum suggested to me becoming an au pair. At the time, I had no idea what that was. And I Googled it. I did some research, and within 3 months, I was on a plane to France to look after a 6-year-old boy. So it was pretty crazy, pretty cool decision to make. But that was the decision that has now led me to where I am working with young people, because that experience was so transformative that I didn't realize at the time. It was only a few years later when I started studying my film degree and writing my book about it, that I realized how much it changed my life. But yeah, so that experience kind of sparked this new inspiration in me to continue, as I said, looking outwards. And so this is the book, The Big Sister Project, that came out of that. And now this book originally was written as kind of a gift, as a thank you to my host family for A, giving me such a great time, but B, just teaching me a lot of life lessons. But as I was going through that editing process of writing the book, I kind of noticed just how much I was learning about myself and where I was going and what I wanted in life, just through understanding my decisions and the way I made decisions and the way I acted and the way I behaved and all those sorts of things. And yeah, as the book kind of had its first year out in the world, I got a lot of feedback from various generations just saying how they got that kind of same vibe from it. You know, it's, you've got to look at your life from that writer's perspective to really understand who you are on a deeper level. And from there, I just thought, you know what, I want to do something with this. I want to make some workshops. I want to teach what I've learned from that experience to younger people so that they can learn about themselves too, and not feel stressed out about little decisions that they make, but actually get to know themselves through that, through the tools and tricks that I used in that writing process.
So I have a question for you. Growing up, how were you as far as having a voice and this stuff? That I want to know exactly where is the passion coming from?
That's a great question. Yeah. I love that question. I think growing up, I was always the loud one. I was always the bossy one. I was always the leader of the group, which might be a little bit obvious now that I'm looking back as to how I've got here. But yeah, I think I was always encouraged as a child to pursue anything I wanted to do. But I often, you know, as a child, that can be difficult because often in a group of friends, if you have one that's a little bit more driven and out there than the others, it can be a struggle. So I did have some tough times growing up. But I remember that in year 5, I really discovered my writing passion. I actually wrote a play about bullying. And now looking back, I see kind of where that kind of came from. And I wrote, directed and starred in the play that was then performed to the rest of the school, which was really exciting. Yeah. And so yeah, as a child, I had a lot of creativity inside me. I had a lot of stories I wanted to tell. But I think there's obvious frustrations as you grow up, especially a couple of generations back, without the technology and stuff to really assist with it.
So why is this topic is important? Why is this something that people should pay attention to, in your opinion?
I really believe that these days, because I've been, you know, I'm only nearly 26 myself, so I've grown up in that generation where technology and social media was kind of just really emerging as it is now. I've been through the phases of various ones that have dropped off along the way, and been part of the ones like Facebook and various others that have really taken off and taken over the lives of various young people. And I think it's quite a misunderstood platform in terms of how much it can provide for young people, because it's so easy to see them just glued to a device and absorbed in what technology is allowing them to do. But actually it can become such a powerful tool for self-expression and finding your voice, becoming an entrepreneur, connecting with people that can even guide you down a pathway that is a bit more linear. And I think the problem I see at the moment is parents in general are quite scared of what technology is providing in society and what it's allowing children to do, because it's not common ground for them. It's not familiar. Right. But actually what I think is important at the end of it is to not be fearful, to actually explore it and embrace it as something. And of course, social media and technology is not just the only thing I look at, but it's one of the big ones that I think influences decision-making for young people.
Okay, got it. In your opinion, what are the challenges that people face when they're dealing with this? Like challenges, frustrations. Well, I know what the frustrations with technology. I had it all day long yesterday trying to get the summit ready. But the fears and challenges and the frustrations. And for our audience member, if any of you have been frustrated by technology in this particular case, go ahead and say yes, frustrated in the chat box for me, please. So I know I'm not alone.
Oh, honestly, you should see the setup I have right now. It's technology. You can never guarantee it's going to be on your side. But to answer your question, with some of the challenges and fears and various things that I see, often the first one is choice overwhelm. Because, you know, back in the day, not even that long ago, really, it was kind of standard to leave school and either go to university or get a job or an apprenticeship. Right. And now that's not so much the case. It's so many things you can do that it's often scary, and it shuts you down and just makes you follow the crowd even more, because it's like, I don't want to be the one that doesn't do what everyone else is doing. Right. Or the fear of the unknown, the fear of maybe I'll zigzag to get to where I want to go. Right. Maybe I'll try different things. Right. So that's probably the main one, is the fear of making a choice. Right. The second is kind of semi-related to the social media thing, is too many influences and peer pressure. So I see with peer pressure now, it's not even outwardly saying to other people, you should do this. It's just the visuals, the advertisements, the sheer bombardment of things and materials that people see these days, feeding into their psyche.
I've actually noticed that with a lot of also, what do you call it, helicopter parenting, I think.
Yeah.
The kids never get their own voice to begin with. So when the time comes to decide who they want to be as a young adult, they have difficulty figuring out, what they want to do with their life or choose a career or things like that, their path in life, basically. So,
yeah. And I find that when you ask children questions, they make a decision pretty quickly. They don't really think too much about it. It's very off the cuff. But when we ask you a question as a teenager or a young adult, your response goes through several filters to even get to a response. And those filters are, what will people think? What is everyone else doing? What's my alternative? How will I feel? Is this going to benefit me later? Like, there's all these filters it goes through before you even say the answer. But then when you do say it, it's not even half the time something you're conscious of where that came from. And that's kind of what I really want to help young people do, is actually explore where those decisions come from, so that moving forward, they actually are empowered to make them based on what they want, not what they think they want.
Okay. I wanted to know also from our audience, if they're parents, what is the age of their children? So if they don't mind putting that in the chat box, I would love to see basically what age groups are we talking about. For Ellie, what is the typical age group that you work with and you focus on?
Yeah, so I primarily work with 16 to 24-year-olds, purely because in New Zealand, at least, the 16 is kind of the age where you can legally leave school, and 24 is the age where you're either leaving university or just about to. So it's kind of that chunk of time where there is a lot of emotional and maturity development there, but there's also quite a lot of similarities in terms of the decisions that need to be made.
Right. Well, Andrea says her child is 16. I don't know whether it's a boy or a girl, but so yes, definitely. Is this something that people could also prepare for in the upcoming years, to say 16 or the adult age?
What do you mean prepare for?
Like something to kind of gear the kids up for, allow them so that when they reach that age, they'll be ready, basically.
Yeah, no, so I definitely think that, I was going to touch on this earlier, actually. I think with the whole journey of childhood, there are so many other things going on that it's often scary for parents to even think too far ahead.
Right.
And obviously I'm not a parent myself, but I have a lot of friends that are, and I have, I'm very close with my parents and their friends. And I think what I've noticed is when they are young children, it's often very intimidating to think, oh gosh, they're going to leave school eventually, and various other things. But often that fear is a projection of the fears that they either had as a younger person, or it's some kind of subconscious thing that they may not have made the right choice for themselves, or might have a little bit of regret around the decisions they made. And it's, as I said, it's not a conscious thing. So I really think it's important for parents, not necessarily activities to do with children, but actually activities to do with themselves, and start with their own story, and actually start to unpack their own subconscious thoughts and their own prejudgments and their own story right from when they were leaving school, to actually see what might be causing them to behave and react the way they do to their child's decisions growing up, because times have changed so much.
So diagnose me here. I'm just going to give you my personal story here.
Yeah.
Some of our audience might not know about this neither. I came from Iran at the age of 14 when there was the Iran-Iraq war. And my parents pretty much sacrificed everything to get me to the United States. And when I came here, I went from an environment that was thriving for me as a child over there to an environment where my parents said, we brought you as far as we could. The rest is up to you. And I all of a sudden went from thrive to, okay, I got to survive because my parents no longer can help me type of a situation. And I ended up having a great bit of difficulty choosing my major and choosing my career when I went to college. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that I felt a sense of guilt and responsibility that my parents had sacrificed so much. So now I had to do this. And of course, now looking at my kids, I want to make sure that they don't end up feeling that same burden, basically, that I felt. So is that something that parents should be concerned about, how to they might burden their kids inadvertently? Is that something that... Okay.
I definitely would say you've just kind of hit the nail on the head there. With burdening, it's not even something parents set out to do. No one sets out to think, I'm going to burden my children with responsibility and heaviness. But children are naturally, we're created inside a tight space where we feel secure when we have people around us, and we rely on people looking after us for most of our early years. So, you know, it's natural to want to please people. But I think in that respect, it's really important to then have those open discussions with your children. If you have stories like your own, or, you know, if you start to recognize you might have things that you're actively trying not to do to your children, it might be good to actually have that discussion with them when you feel that they're mature enough, and actually say outwardly, because I think if you keep it in, it's always going to come out in another way. That's what I firmly believe. So if you, for you, for example, I'm not sure what your relationship's like with your children. I imagine it's fantastic. But if you know, I would definitely say to you, open up that conversation around the dinner table sometimes, and maybe shock them a little bit off the cuff and say, have you ever thought, you know, have you ever seen this side of me? Or is there anything I've done that you think might be like this? And say, actually, do you know what this is? And be proud of it. Be proud of the fact that you've acknowledged something, because especially teenagers, it's so easy for them to just lock it inside and not want to acknowledge their own expectations of themselves. Or, you know, if they don't see it being recognized by, if they don't see their parents recognizing it inside themselves, the pattern will continue. Absolutely. So yeah, I definitely think open the conversation for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you. So tell us more tips and wisdom about what you do and how people can go ahead and overcome some of these challenges that we were discussing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So as I said, I think it starts with keeping it simple and looking at your own story. But I think for most people, if I say look at your story, it's kind of a big concept. So the first thing that a tip that I'd give is actually look at your favorite books and your favorite movies. Just sit down one day when you have 5 minutes with a cup of tea or a beer or whatever you prefer, and actually think about your favorite stories that you actually like to read or watch. And when you start to do that, you'll start to see, or if you unpack the themes and the characters, what the ending is, how they get to the ending, who the bad guys are, all those little individual story pieces. When you start to unpack that, you can start to make comparisons to your own life. If I was to ask you now, what would be the genre of your life? If, you know, what would be the main theme of your life? Who are the bad guys? Who are the ones you're trying to push past? What's your end goal? I hope I would not say it as tragedy, but... Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. Like, you often, I think if you really looked at all the traits of your life as if it was a movie, look at it as if it was a movie or a book, whichever you're more attached to, I guess, start to say. So if I asked you right now, if you could think off the top of your head what the theme of your life would be, would you know? The actual adventure, for sure. Yeah, that's adventure. Adventure. Yeah, definitely. Adventure. Yeah. So let me ask the audience too. Let me get their input on this. How would you describe the genre of your life, guys? Let me know how you would describe that. I want to see, basically. Awesome. This is really cool. All right, so we'll wait for that answer. So okay, so you were saying? Yeah, no problem. So I think with just an extension of this tip, everything I teach in my Make Way programs is based on the concept of a beginning, middle, and end. Everything has a beginning, middle, and end. My sentence, what I do in my day, how I communicate with you, everything, even micro moments. And I think, you know, once you've acknowledged what your life is like, you can then kind of section off, I guess, the beginning part, establish what the chapters are. So everything is around, when you're looking at a story, there are chapters, there are sections. And if you've ever read a book in your life, you'll know that each chapter has something that happens that is either resolved or sets up for a resolve later, or sets up for an event that will be occurring later. So your life is a series of those. And if you established what's happened so far and who's come into it, when you start to look at yourself as the author of your life, you can start to, you know, take that power back of, I'm actually in charge of who gets to stay. I'm in charge of the direction of this novel. And I'm in charge of what needs to happen in this chapter right now. So instead of looking at your life as a big picture and, oh my gosh, I've got so many things I want to achieve and help my kids with, it's where am I at? What's happening in this chapter? What needs resolving before we can move on? Who's feeling sad? Who's feeling overwhelmed? Who's feeling overexcited? and just address those things as a beginning, middle, and end of each point within each chapter.
Awesome. Andrea says the genre of her life is self-reflection.
I love that.
So I like that. That sounds like a personal development book, right?
Yeah, I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, I know, definitely. I'm really intrigued now to know more about it. So I remember also, I think it was around age of 14, that, you know, as you start becoming this young adult, you start having these, you're connecting things and you're starting to make sense of the world around you. And in doing so, you start coming up with bright ideas, at least at the time for myself, it was bright ideas. And I thought to myself, maybe I should write these things down, and I never did. But had I done that, I feel like now I could look back and see my mental development and my personal growth over the years from early on, from childhood into adulthood. Is that something you would encourage for the kids to do, or for parents to encourage their kids to do?
For sure. And I think, you know, I've never been a consistent person when it comes to journaling or writing diaries. It's only ever been when I've been on holiday for a couple of weeks, I've taken notes about like a travel diary. So I did that when I was an au pair as well. And I've done over the years when I've had particular times of life, like periods of life that I've been needing to get through, if that makes sense. I've been kind of writing about them. And I've recently actually got into it again, just as a way of mind dumping, because there's a lot going on in here all the time. So I think, yeah, I definitely recommend it because, like I said, I think if it's in here, it's going to come out in some way. And if you're not putting it out there to yourself, you're going to put it out there onto someone else to then tell you back, if that makes sense, or tell back to you. I'm not sure if that's good English.
That's deep. That's very powerful right there, what you just said. So if you don't put it out there for yourself, you know, you'd be putting it out there for someone else. And that's very important, especially if it's an issue that needs resolving, right?
Yeah, and I think if people struggle with journaling or getting ideas out of their head, even if it's something basic, I think, you know, start with small prompts instead of just thinking, okay, today I did this. Be more specific, you know, ask yourself, what did I feel happy about today? What made me angry and why? And how am I feeling right now? What do I need to do to make sure that doesn't affect my day tomorrow? Or, you know, various things like ask yourself questions to dive into those subjects rather than just going wild.
Are there qualities that you encourage people to explore, like key qualities? Like I know that people always tell me about like gratitude being one of those qualities. Or so are there things like that that you would encourage people to discover?
Yeah, so gratitude, I'm glad you said that one. I was going to jump on there straight away. I think that's something that I've really again started to explore a lot more recently, because a few years ago, I think the year that I was writing my book, I had a bit of a tough year. And, you know, my friends used to say to me, oh, just write 3 things that you're grateful for at the end of the day. And I would be like, oh, it's not making me feel any better. And I don't see the point in this. And they said, oh, it's taking your brain off the negative. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not feeling it. It's not making any difference. And I got frustrated. But this year I've really started to explore what that means. And I think it's not a case of what are you grateful for? It's actually thinking, okay, this happened, but this also happened. So that's pretty cool. Like, don't think about it as this conscious, like heavy, what am I grateful for? If that's too much, you know, like think about it as a simple, basic, this is a good thing that happened. I have a roof over my head. I ate a really nice lunch today. The sun was out. Like basic things, start small and work it up. Another one, I definitely think the biggest, I guess it's more of a value. It's my number one value, but I try to teach it in the work I do, is loyalty. Because people, like, we're born needing other people. We're nothing without other humans, really. Because if no one's there to see us or hear us, or
COVID is
us,
perfect proof.
Yeah, exactly. COVID is a blessing in that sense. It's shown the world just how much we need each other. So I think loyalty is one of those things that when you find that you either don't know where you're going, or need to, you know, want to explore your relationships further, I think it's definitely, loyalty is really important. I think it's important to be loyal to yourself first, because if you're just doing things because you think you should, that's where the danger is. I think if you're actually asking yourself and being true to who you are and asking yourself those questions before you move on to make bigger decisions, that is really important first. And you can then, that is something that when you start to feel better about yourself and are true to yourself, again, that's a positive projection. That is something you'll want to give to other people. And more people will start to see that in you and see that as a good quality, and they'll want to be loyal back to you. They'll want to develop deeper connections, and more authentic conversations will naturally come from that. And then another one I'd say is empathy. I think I really struggle to be angry at anyone that yells at me now. You know, I always look for the deeper reason with everything. If I'm in a tough situation, or someone's fighting in front of me, or having a go at me about something, or I see something, you know, someone has a go at me in the supermarket because I accidentally moved in front of them, or whatever it is, big or small, I always look for what's the story there? Where did that come from? And the minute you do that, it just takes so much off you, because you're like, this isn't me, this is them, this is their projection.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I
That's
think
amazing.
that's
Ellie,
crucial.
I wanted to explain for our audience for just a second, because on my background as a clinical neuroscientist, there are different parts of your brain that are responsible for different things. And what you just mentioned about empathy, I want you guys to understand that we are one of the few species on this planet. There are very, very, like, less than a handful of species that actually can show empathy. And that is one of those higher evolutionary tree, if you would, type of a development. And it is something that needs to be exercised, though. And your kids will actually learn it from you. And it comes from facial recognition and reading facial expressions and things like that. And when you are stressed, or when you're less than optimally healthy, because it's one of the later parts of the brain that has been developed, it's one of the first parts that shuts down. So people that actually have not grown up in optimal conditions, or they feel threatened, or they're in survival mode, they have a more difficult time empathizing. So if you catch yourself in a situation like that, start not questioning the scenario and the situation, but actually look at what it is that you could do to help support yourself, so that you can support your brain in actually functioning as well as it can. Because it is very important. We are social creatures. Our success in large part on this planet has to do with the fact that we've been able to empathize, we've been able to work together, we've been able to put the group's interest as well as our interest basically in context together. And if you can't empathize that, you either become antisocial or you become self-sacrificing, neither of which is exactly what you need to do. So sorry, I keep rambling on, but
no, that's really interesting.
so,
Yeah.
so.
No, yeah, no, that's cool.
Anyways, more about you. It's not about me. So.
No, that's cool. No, I think in terms of, I've actually forgotten your question. What was it in terms of?
We were talking about your program and what you do, and discovering the wonderful magic in the message that you have.
Yeah. So with the programs that I run, they're called Make Way. I think the reason might be quite obvious, but it's basically, it's a phrase I kind of caught myself saying quite a lot when I was talking about what to do next with my own life, you know, and I was saying, you know, I've got to make way for my own story, I've got to make way for my own decisions. And I was thinking that kind of just sat in my head for a while. And then when the time came, I was like, actually, this is a great way to establish a program. And, you know, people that come along on the programs, I call them Waymakers, because it's kind of cheesy and fits well. Yeah, I like that too. But the programs are, you know, they're for schools as well. So if you know, there's a larger group of students that are just looking for a little bit of alternative thinking, I guess, ways of assessing what's next, because that's the really scary part. There's nothing scarier than being at the end of school and saying, what are you doing next? I think, because there's this pressure to just suddenly know, and nobody knows. I still don't really know. I don't think, you know, I don't think we ever really know. I think you just go about life, you know, attracting what you're passionate about, and that can come in many forms. And I don't think we should fear change. I don't think we should fear where our heart takes us. And I know that sounds really like spacey, but I think it's important to know, like, I'm a prime example of a zigzagger. You know, I've done uni, I've done travel, I've worked full-time in corporate, I've worked full-time in non-corporate, I've done part-time jobs, I've started a business, I've written a book. Like, I've done this massive zigzag to get to where I am now. And I think the minute we say, I'm going to do this, so therefore I have to do that, You know, it just takes away so many opportunities in the peripheral sides.
So one of the things, sorry, again, I'm
No,
interrupting.
you're fine. You're fine.
So Carol says that she has a 13-year-old boy.
Mm-hmm.
So for our audience that have kids that are approaching the young adult years, are there any signs or symptoms for parents to look out for that might suggest that this person might have difficulty finding their way or having a voice or an identity, things of that nature? I dealt with a lot of autistic spectrum kids, so I know that some of them ended up having difficulty. But in your expertise and your experience, what do you think? Are there any
I
signs?
think I always think, like, part of what I do is actually get people to look outwards, to look inwards. And the first thing I would do in a situation where having a young teenager is look at, again, you already know this as parents, but look at the circle of friends. And look at the parents of those friends. It's not just the friends, because the kids are a projection of their parents, right? So if your kid's hanging out with really awesome kids that have got a lot going for them, but they're very this way or that way, actually try and have a conversation with their parents and just see where their thinking's at, because ultimately your kid spends more time at school in the week than they do with you. And whatever those kids are coming out with is from what they've been fed at home. Kids are the most honest people on the planet, you know. And young teenagers, I think that's when, you know, they're allowed social media, they're allowed to explore stuff. So I think it's even scarier then, because they're just going to follow what their friends do. They're going to follow the comfort zone. So instead of freaking out and thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know what my kid's going to end up doing, stop, just breathe for a second and think about them as a character in a story, in your story, and think about the role they play in your story, and then think about them as the lead role in their own story. Because there's two roles that we all play. We play a role in someone else's, in other people's story, and we play a role in our own. And we can't control everything, but we can look at what's in the story to be able to understand what's helping them navigate that space. So it's not just a child, you know, if your child is seemingly very receptive to information from everyone else, or you find at home that they respond a certain way, chances are the way they are at home, they respond that similar way to school and teachers and other kids. So just look at their influences first, and then look beyond that.
Good point. Good point,
Yeah.
especially with peer pressure and everything else nowadays. Definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome. So tell us more about your program, and you were describing some of that, and I interrupted you again. So
no, that's cool. So yeah, the Make Way programs. What I do is work with, again, 16 to 24-year-olds. There is one-to-one work that I do, mentoring over a period of months, with an initial session, ongoing homework and work that they can do for themselves, and then follow-up sessions. And there's two different versions of that depending on how much work you want to do. And then there's also the schools program. We have a half-day immersion or a full-day immersion. All of these can be run via Zoom, online, in various ways, because I know obviously we can't travel anywhere right now. Well, at least I can't. The borders are closed in New Zealand. I'm stuck on this little island. But the way the programs work is everything I do, as I said at the beginning, is based on the whole concept of a beginning, middle, and end. We have an acronym for Make Way. I won't go through the entire thing now, but there is an acronym that is actually part of the download that I'm giving away, and we use that as a way to navigate the questions and the type of work for self-discovery and understanding the story that you have. And with the whole beginning, middle, and end process, there are things that I've brought across from the film world of the concept of a lights, camera, action, that I use to implement the actual practical side of the course. So it's not heaps of essay writing or writing your own book or anything like that.
that doesn't sound like fun.
No, it's not. It's very much image-based discussion, challenge, activity that's very much guided and bouncing back and forth. It's not like, okay, now this, now this, now this. It's okay, go back to that, and how does this align? And it's all about finding alignment in decision and finding alignment in how you feel about things as you go. And it's really exciting. Yeah.
You mentioned the giveaway, the gift. So tell us more about that. That was very generous of you.
Yeah, so in the giveaway there, I've created a PDF file with the Makeway acronym, which isn't something I usually give away because it's something that obviously is something I teach, but it's that you get the acronym, and there's also various guided activities for each of the words. So it's not just here, look at these words and figure it out for yourself. We've actually given you like a framework of like a crash course, I guess, in Makeway. And it's at the moment, the way I've created it is to help parents and young people, so you can actually do it for yourself and then work it through with your young people as well.
And it's called 7 Keys You Need to Make Way, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Now, I did mention that there was some issues with the links. So I am getting all of our audience who is interested in it to either fill in the form that Mercy just put in there, or you can email me directly at support@rolemodelmaker.com. And in the subject line, put Ellie, so I know the gift that you are requesting, and I will process it, and I will, Ellie, send you the list of all the people who requested your gift as well. That would be very generous.
I'm also offering, I was just going to say, I'm also offering for anyone that wants to do the Makeway programs for the whole month of September. I'm offering 20% off any of them, and they can be redeemed within the next 6 months, but just booking within September as well.
Awesome. So if you go ahead and you want to take advantage of that, you can go ahead and still send me the email, and then you know that it's coming from here, so that you can go ahead and credit them with that generous discount. Now, I have another question. Well, I want to make sure that we open the floor for any questions that our audience may have, and answer any questions that they may have. So please go ahead and use the chat box and type in any question you may have for Ellie in regards to parenting, in regards to your kids, and then we can go from there, or even actually about the program, and then we can go from there. Any final words for us, Ellie, as far as anything that you think you would like to share?
I think one thing I was thinking about was just, and this isn't just to work with me, this is just in general, for my own personal development over the past few years, I've noticed that there's only so far I can take my own thoughts and my own ideas and what I want to achieve. And this is in a business sense, but I think in life, it's really important to actually seek external just guidance, and it doesn't necessarily have to be long term, but I think it's so easy for us naturally to get stuck inside our head and just think that we have all the answers and we're good to go, but that's actually where the stress comes. And I think when you start to like really look outwards and see what's going on in the world, one of the things I encourage in the Makeway programs is actually because the whole concept of finding our purpose and finding our calling is such a massive thing, and no one can just say off the cuff when they're a teenager, oh, this is my life purpose. But I think what I really encourage, just as a final note, is to actually look at world causes, look at bigger scale problems that are going on, look at who's rallying for what things are people fighting for at the moment, and then think about which ones you connect to just on a small level, like where are your morals, like where do you feel that resonates with you. And when you figure that out, when you look at a bigger scale, you can start to pull it back and say, well, actually, that's because I care about people. That's because I care about equality, blah, 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 and figure out all those little things. And then you bring it back down to, well, what am I good at? How can I contribute towards that in my own special way? Am I good at maths?
You just mentioned something
can I do that?
really important. I think part of developing your character, even as an adult, is knowing what you stand for and what you stand against, correct? And going through that exercise with the kids to kind of not only learn more about them, but also for them as an exercise to see who they are and what they stand for. And is there a way, or is that something that you recommend?
I definitely recommend it. I'm a big fan of mind maps. I don't know if you call it that in the States. It's just like a brainstorm or something visual. I like using liquid chalk on windows or Post-it notes. Don't think it has to be a list or an essay. Just start to think about what's going on right now, like what marches, what hashtags, like make it modern, and think, well, why do you care about that? And often teenagers, like young teenagers, will say, oh, because I do, or because this person does, just because that's what's happening right now. But they don't really think, do I care about this? So just investigate, ask them why, because toddlers ask why about everything. And as kids get older, they ask why, but then you get to teenage years and it's the other way around. The parents are always asking why. And the kids,
time, right? So we get to say
yeah,
why.
yeah, yeah, it's payback, but it's also like actually encourage them to want to ask why, because the minute you stop asking why, what's the point? You know, just on autopilot.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. I appreciate it. I love to chat more, maybe even do an interview on RolemodelMaker YouTube channel and discuss things further. I wanted to thank you for carving time out of your schedule to be here with us, especially from your sleep.
From my sleep.
and being with us. I really appreciate the pearls and the wisdom that you have. I really love your journey. And also, while we were talking about things like loyalty and gratitude, one of the things that I wanted our audience to hopefully recognize themselves is that I'm grateful for the fact that you are parents and you are here. You are the role models and you are shaping the future of humanity. So don't take that lightly. And I do really, really say it from my heart that I do appreciate you being here, because that shows your commitment towards being a better person, towards being a better parent, towards the future of humanity. And I applaud you for that. So there's my gratitude, basically, as far as that's concerned.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that you're also giving yourselves credit for that accomplishment, that not only are you a parent, but every single day you should check off that box that you were a parent for that day. And it doesn't matter whether you did a good job or a bad job. Nevertheless, you were a parent. And I don't know any parent that doesn't try to do their best. So give yourself credit for that. And thank you for that. And thank you, Ellie, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. If you guys like a recording of Ellie's conversation, you can upgrade to the VIP, and then you'll get that plus some other bonuses. And also, we always encourage you, if you like to work with a mentor, that you can go ahead to RolemodelMaker and have a consultation with myself, and I can talk to you about whatever challenge you may be facing as well. Thank you for everybody, for the audience, for Ellie, for being here. And we look forward to seeing our two next speakers on top of the hour. And hope you guys stay with us and follow us over the next 2 days. And don't forget to share this with other parents around you. And then we'll go from there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
And
Cheers,
have
guys.
a great rest of the summit.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.